Hello, hi Tahira, how are you doing?
Hi, Vyasa. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good. How has the MCO been treating you?
Actually, I've been grateful and thankful for the MCO because I've
Uh,
been able to spend more time at home and
okay.
being able to sort out a lot of things, declutter a lot of things. I've been able to Marie Kondo a lot of things.
Marie Kondo, yeah. This is the time a lot of people are doing the
Yeah,
same thing also. And I suppose your cat is able to
exactly.
spend a bit more time with you now, right?
That's right. And the amazing thing is, I've also been able to make some desserts and some of the things that my mother used to make. And I'm quite surprised they all turned out well. I didn't burn down the kitchen or anything.
Yeah, I've been following your desserts in the LinkedIn and all. Okay.
Okay.
So, friends, here today we have Tahirah Manesah. All right, she's an termination specialist, the Terminator. All right. Okay, so she's actually working. Let me just read out a little bit about her today. Okay, Tahirah is actually has over 20 years of experience in the corporate, legal, HR, and IR across a spectrum of industries. Her current appointment being the nation's with the nation's biggest flour miller, FFM Berhad, as a human resource manager. All right. The organization recently won Malaysian Employers Federation (MEF) Excellence Award for Best HR Practices. So Tahira is also an employers panel member of the Industrial Court of Malaysia.
Yes.
All
Correct.
right. So I have been actually following Tahira on LinkedIn, where I follow some of her work and her research. She always gives a lot of detail, a lot of case studies, and a lot of people actually follow her for her IR work. Am I right, Tahira?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Okay. So she goes by the hashtag no snake oil.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So what does it mean actually? No snake oil.
You see, snake oil sellers,
Yeah.
it's actually a peribahasa, lah, is a saying,
Right.
for conmen. So
Okay.
in the human, there's actually a lot of people trying to scam unsuspecting employees, graduates, job scammers,
Yes.
scammers lah. Even
Right.
people who bought their PhDs or their masters from mills and all that, and then
Right.
they apply for a job and gain an unfair advantage. You're the snake oil sellers.
Right.
So
Right.
for me, I am trying my best to be someone who's what do you call it, to make other people realize what are their rights and who are the scammers, who are not. Okay, so when, for example, graduates, when they apply for jobs, what are the correct channels that they should apply? Who are the right people to approach so that they won't, come across these scammers and get conned? Similarly, with employers as well, how to detect people who have all these fake degrees and all that. So basically, I am an employee and employer rights awareness advocate. I try and balance the rights of both parties, actually, not just the
Right.
employees.
Right. Okay. So today, thanks for that, Tahira. Today, friends, if you have questions, please drop the message early on in the comments so that, and a lot of people are already starting to ask a lot of questions on this area that we're going to talk about later today. Tahira is here to talk about what employers and employees should really know about termination, right? A lot of employees are very worried and they don't want to be unfairly terminated. And also, employees who have a need to terminate, they need to also know what is right and what's wrong in termination. All right. So if you have questions, again, please drop it early on. We have already got a long string of questions. Also, please just drop a hello note and also that we know that you are here. Tahira will know also you are here. Drop a heart, drop a like, uh, so that she knows. Okay, so let's go on to the main topic today. What should employers and employees, what should they know about termination, especially during this crisis? Over to you, Tahira.
Thank you, Vyasa. I have been approached by so many countless people, whether from the employees' side or the employer's side, regarding terminations, regarding pay cuts, regarding what action they can take, what is lawful and what is not lawful during this COVID season. Now, before that, I just want to add on something. To my bio that you read out earlier. Now, being a termination specialist doesn't mean that I go around with a parang and terminate people, just like those pengait of the, the North Borneo myth of the pengait. You see, you go
Yes,
parang everybody.
potong
Now,
kepala.
being a termination specialist, yeah, potong kepala. Now, being a termination specialist, I actually advise management or I advise whoever needs my advice lah on the ethical and legal ways of managing terminations and actually if possible retrenchments and dismissals and termination should be the last thing a business should do. There
Yes,
are so many things like this COVID season. There's so many things that we should put as priority and not just think about termination as the first priority. Okay, now talking about how to navigate during this season. First of all, businesses have to realize, employees have to realize that this pandemic, no matter how serious it is, I call it a leviathan, I call it a monster because it's destroying the economy by 80 to 90%. It is actually destroying more lives than just taking the lives of the COVID patients.
yeah,
But what businesses need to realize is that this pandemic will go away. No matter how long it takes, no, we don't know when it's going to go away, but it will go away. And the economy will be revived. Whether the economy is going to rebound in a V shape, a U shape, or an L shape, we do not know. What I mean a V shape is that it rebounds in the ideal way. Once the pandemic is over, it quickly rebounds back. And everything goes back to normal. The U shape is when it takes a little bit of time for the economy to recover. And the L shape is when there is a long term recession, something that we do not want. But at the end of the day, businesses must understand, employers must understand that the pandemic will be over and the economy will be back to a certain uh, rehabilitated stage. Yeah.
right,
I'm not saying things will go back to how it was before. The pandemic has changed the landscape of employment very dramatically. Even now, today, as we speak, during this MCO, the employment landscape has changed a lot. So, my question is this: before we even think about terminations, retrenchments, laying off, can we stop and think about what we can do for our people? And likewise, employees, what they can do for the organization before retrenchment or terminations take place. All right. Now, I think HR practitioners would be very much aware of the fact that if we're talking about retrenchment, there are procedures, there are laws regarding retrenchments. Okay, I need not go through that. Those are basic things, right? But retrenchments are not to be done in an instant way. Like, for example, send a
Tahira's out for a short while. The line is broken today. The internet is uh, a little bit jerky. We'll wait for Tahira to come back in again. Yeah.
I think we were disconnected a little bit
Yes, yes,
just
we
now.
were right. No worries. We are back on.
Yeah, are we okay?
We are back on. Yeah,
All right. So you, yeah.
yeah. All good.
Okay. So I think employers and employees likewise should stop and think. When they use the word retrenchment, is that the appropriate word for them to use during this season? I
Right.
have been asked. I have connections. I have people from everywhere. Even my own relatives coming to me and saying, "Hey, I just got a letter saying, my services have been terminated in the name of retrenchment. I have been retrenched. And
Right.
I asked them, I said, when did you get this notice? They said, oh, I just got it today. And I'm being retrenched today. And I'm like, uh, that's not retrenchment. That is summary termination. That's termination simpliciter. Because retrenchment, you have to have several reasons, several conditions before you retrench. There's you have to file in the PK form. You have to give notice of 30 days before. And then there is another two stages to go, right? And I've also been approached by people who have been laid off or retrenched, whatever it is, in the name of performance appraisals. They said,
Interesting.
"Dear Mr. You have not performed well to the satisfaction of the company during your probation, and therefore your services are terminated."
Probation time, and
Now,
this is
yeah, this is the strange thing. And I asked this person, did you get any pre-warnings before this? Was your probation period extended? Were you ever put on PIP? And they said no. They said all of a sudden during the MCO, while they're working from home, they got an email. Some of them even got WhatsApps. I'm telling you,
right, right.
suddenly saying that their services won't be needed anymore because of their performance issues. Now this is really, this is not the right thing. This is not the right way to go about it. Sorry. This is something tantamount to unfair dismissal, I would say. Because if you're talking about performance issues, there must have been some remedial action taken, extension of probation, some kind of remedial action rather than just terminating the person by email or by WhatsApp. And similarly, if a person is being retrenched, so-called retrenched because of the pandemic, because of the MCO, uh, the legal procedures, filing the PK form and all that, and giving notice and all that, those still apply. The law doesn't change just because there's an MCO. The law doesn't change just because there's a pandemic. Yeah. So a lot of people are left stranded because of this, and I think this is not right. Now, having said that, I do understand businesses, especially smaller businesses, when they've got to lay off people. I do understand. But I do think that you should stop for a little while and think about what you can do before you lay off your people. And maybe even after you lay them off, something you can do for them. Because you see, when the economy comes back uh, to its post-pandemic situation, you will need your people back. You will need people to help you rebuild your business, and for you to get new people, for you to have to put them on probation to assess the suitability. It will take up a lot of resources, a lot of time. You will eventually need the people that you've got on board, because they can do the job. They've proven they can do the job. So it is wise for you to actually treat your people with empathy. I think this is the core issue here that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about terminations. We're going to talk about navigating human resources during this pandemic period with empathy. Yeah. Okay.
Got it.
Shall I go on, Yosef,
Yeah,
or you want
please
to
go on.
ask some
Okay,
questions?
just we just take a short pause to just say hello to everyone that's here. Here we have Azamuddin, Jamaluddin, and then we have Bhuvaneswari who said hello. She said that there's no snake oil caught her attention. And then we have Hakim Samsudin. Can we
Okay.
trust job seeking companies? Okay, we can answer that one later on, right? And then Nurul Besar Mohammed Baki said hello. Uh, no parang to terminate people. And then Dr.
Abang
Amina said
Nurul. Hi.
yes, Abang Nurul here. And then Dr. Amina Joseta is here. She says hello. Uh, Lovely to finally hear you speak today. All right. from Dr. Amina,
Waalaikumsalam, Dr. Amina. Thank you so much.
and then Vicky Krishna says hello. Chitra says hello. Let me see who else. Okay, Chitra also has a question.
Chitra, yeah.
Okay, with such widespread panic, what are your thoughts on educating the employers and employees on this? Yeah, we'll be doing that here today, right? And then
Yes.
Bhuvaneshwari said majority of employees are using MCO as an excuse. They are quoting underperformance during this pandemic. You are not servicing the company well during this time. Okay, and then business process is okay. Well said about the pandemic situation, right? I think a lot of these questions will be answered along in today's topic, and there are more questions further on. I'll read up the other questions later on, right, Tahira? So, Tahira, please carry on.
Yeah, okay. So maybe we can continue on with the
Yeah.
topic
Yep.
on empathy. Okay.
Okay.
If you have been reading the Mercer studies, I'm sure the HR practitioners here would have subscribed to Mercer's study. They have just recently come out with a 2020 study on empathy, winning with empathy. And it's all about empathetic management, which I believe is chock full of tips and tricks that you all can apply during the MCO. Now, I
Okay.
know HR. Now, let me just address people who are in my field.
Right.
You are in the middle, and I know how stuck you are, and I know how dilemmatic you are. Because if you have, now I must say something about my employer. My employer is the most wonderful employer in the world, basically. They don't even know I'm here live, but I'm just telling you. They are, because we put people first, and that's always been the legacy from the first day we started business 54 years ago. Now they are my fellow HR practitioners who have employers who would not listen to them. And the thing is, their companies may not be so big. They may have just about 30 people, or some even less than 20. But the management has resorted to culling the headcount instead of supporting the employees during this very, very crucial period. Now, let me try and I understand as a HR practitioners that all you can do is to give your ideas. You can't make your employers change their mind, but maybe if you can give them the data, if you can give them justification from qualitative and quantitative studies that have been done, it may actually help you to to for your management to buy into your idea. Okay, first of all, I think before we even talk about pay cuts, before we talk about retrenchments and terminations, we need to take care of our people by having proper frameworks in place, proper standard operating procedures, proper policies in place. Do we have a policy for outbreaks? Not just about this pandemic, but any outbreak, any crisis. Do we have a crisis communication policy? Do we have policies on managing health risks for the staff? No, it is very important to put things down in a policy. You can have a simple policy. It does not need to be, you know, in the class of public listed companies. You can have simple ones. For example, during this MCO period or during this pandemic, some companies are still going to operate. Some companies will have people working from home. Some companies will have people working in rotations in what do you call it, segregations. Yeah, half at home and half in the office or in the factory. Okay, so what are your measures? What are the methodologies that you've adopted for you to show that you are an employer that cares about its people? One is complying with the law. So you have to comply with the law, right? Maybe each day take the temperatures of your staff who are coming into work, record their health condition every day. Make sure you sanitize the workplace. Make sure PPEs are given to them. Make sure you share important information and updated prevailing regulations from the government to your people. Make sure your people are not in the dark as to what's happening. Make sure you open channels for your people to seek advice, whether it's from the HR department or the admin or whoever it is that takes care of the people. Make sure that number one, you comply with the law in terms of taking care of your people during this pandemic. Secondly, you show that you're a caring employer by having a proper system to take care of your people. So your people know where to go when they need advice, when they are, everybody's scared at this time. So when
Yeah.
they're scared, where do they go? You don't want them to listen to fake news on the internet. You don't want them to listen to, there's a lot of snake oil, if I may say, on the internet regarding the pandemic at the moment. You
Yes.
do not want your people to listen to that and start spreading that. That is just as bad as them going out, and not maintaining social distance and spreading the virus. So the employers need to be responsible enough to take care of their people in those terms, and to make sure there's a proper system for you, um, to manage your risk, to manage your people's expectations, and to also show care and empathy towards your people. Protect your people. That's being fair. Before you talk about retrenching them, before you talk about cutting their salaries, cutting their pay, you need to talk about, having taken care of them first. That's the first thing.
Right.
Now I know it's inevitable for a lot of smaller companies to lay off their people, but you can there's so many other ways to do this. Laying off is not the same as retrenchment. Retrenchment is letting people go, uh, is actually terminating their services by paying them a certain compensation. Even that also is depending on the terms and conditions of that person's contract. Now, laying off can actually be temporary. You can put your staff on a temporary layoff, or an unpaid leave for a certain time, for a few months. Yeah. Until the economy picks up, you're able to open your business again, and your business is able to pay you the salaries of your people. You get them back on board, and you can pay them the arrears of their salary slowly from there. You can have a simple agreement with them on this. Of course, the government has also supported through the Prihatin scheme. There's a lot of support from the government right now, and I would encourage you to take it out, even if you have part-time stuff. I know distribution companies, companies with part-time promoters, part-time bar crew or service crew. You can also apply for this ERP scheme, they call it, employee retention scheme. You can apply for this, and if you have a business which is suffering more than 50% losses, you can also apply for the wages subsidy scheme. And there's so many things that the government has actually put in place. So consider those. Consider those. You see, when we look at the pandemic in terms of, we look at it, we are businesses, we're businessmen. We look at it from the bottom line perspective, bottom up. We look at, our profits and losses. Obviously, the first thing for us would be to cull the manpower, because they are the biggest costs, overhead costs. But think about it. If you've always heard about employees, when they leave a certain company, they are told not to burn bridges. It is actually likewise for employers. Don't burn bridges with your employees, because you never know when you might want to call them back. And I have seen companies actually literally begging for their star ex-employees to come back, willing to do anything, just because they want the expertise of that person, that only that particular person can deliver what they want. So during this time, treat your people with respect, treat your people with empathy, even if you have to resort to, for example, a pay cut. Now, I have received uh, not to say complaints, but laments. Basically, I've been comforting people, crying, coming over to me and saying, their salaries have been reduced by 50%, 20%. For people with families, 20% pay cut is a lot. For people like me, you hack half my salary, so I don't care because I'm living alone with just my cat. I can survive on tin sardine and all that, but not everybody can do that, especially if they have children. 4 years ago, I wouldn't be able to do that because I was taking care of my mother and taking care of an aging parent with their medical expenses and all that. Every cent counts, and I totally understand this. So when someone
Right.
comes to me and say their salary has been hacked by 20%, I ask them, is it, when is this reduction going to take place? Oh, already taken place. Sudah
Mm.
potong baru mau cakap.
Okay.
Sometimes they will tell you today, they will then tomorrow the salary bank in minus 20%. So I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
okay, in my mind, I'm like, what is wrong with your employer that they can't communicate this properly? I understand this salary reduction may be an effort not to retrench. Maybe it's
Right.
something a cost they have to save in order to for the greater good lah. So they
Right.
can save the organization. Tapi communicate properly lah. Even during this time, let's say your staff are all working from home. There's always video conferencing, there's always WhatsApp, there's always, a phone call, a traditional phone call. Just call them and say, look, you know, we have to resort to salary reduction, this and that. And mind you, salary reduction cannot be done unilaterally. Please be mindful of this as employers and HR practitioners. No matter whether we've got cholera or COVID or whatever it is, the law is the law. You must get explicit consent from your staff, from your colleagues, if you're HR practitioner, before you can do any kind of salary reduction.
Right.
And that consent cannot be forced. And you cannot use jalan belakang or jalan tikus to tipu them out of this consent.
Mm.
Because if you do that, okay, once the MCO is over, they will make a beeline for the IR department and claim constructive dismissal.
Right. Right.
Okay? So I said communication is important. At least, have a VC, or kalau tak boleh, everybody has WhatsApp. At least, give them a video call and say, management has to resort to, a salary reduction, 20%. They may not agree. They may make a lot of noise, pompang pompit, but we know lah. But whatever it is, at least you have told them and then you've given them ample time. Janganlah hari ni cakap besok potong. Give them
Right.
ample time to think about it, come back to you. It is not compulsory for you to adopt every single suggestion of your employee. But at least you
Right.
listen, you think about it, and then give them time to come back, understand, the whole situation. And they will ask a lot of questions, but you will have to answer every single question.
Right.
This is where HR plays. If you're the type of HR manager who just sit behind the keyboard and just command everybody, I think you have to change your ways lah. You have to listen to the orang bawah, especially those who are under the Employment Act.
Right.
Yeah. When they ask questions, they may sound very silly question to you, and they may ulang-ulang the same question 10 times, but you have to answer those questions because people psychologically, when employers pay attention to them, lama-lama dia pun fikir jugalah, okay lah, it's for the greater good. It's for the greater good. Okay lah, we agree. No, what I'm saying is this, all these things I'm saying are the things I've done. I'm not
Right.
talking through my head.
Yes.
I I have traveled nationwide to talk to, you can ask my colleagues lah, from the bread salesmen to the operators to the forklift drivers. I make it a point to speak to everyone. And no matter how I lose my voice, I get tired of talking to them, I must make sure they understand why the company is doing something and give their consent.
Right.
So fortunately
Right.
for my employees, we're not doing any pay cuts lah. I'm talking about other policies here. Okay, pay cuts we're not doing. But what I'm saying is that the method has got to be the same. You have to communicate. Dalam you punya communication tu, that's how you show that you care about your employees. And trust me, your care and your manifestation of that care, if you show you care, your employee will agree with you. You will get their consent, you will get their consent willfully because they understand. Tapi kalau tiba-tiba you hantar dia surat, I know I have had a few friends who said that their management send them a letter attached to a WhatsApp message lah, and these are top management. And then tiba-tiba say, oh, your salary will be deducted, reduced by 20%. Of course he
Right.
went, I pun tak
Yes.
salahkan
Yes.
you lah. And then
Yes.
when
Yes.
to the management, the HR say, oh, management already decided. Management said, oh, sorry, we have to do it because we have all these losses to bear and all that. Now we understand you have losses to bear, but it
Yes.
doesn't stop you from being human, isn't it?
Exactly.
Ah,
Exactly.
so exactly. Just people, orang pun ada. People say people can think about it. Even your lowest level, your blue collars, actually, they can see sense lah. Talk to them nicely. Persuade. Talk in their language also. If you have to use your roja or your santai language, go ahead and use. Talk to them nicely. They will actually agree because when they know, when they see why the company is doing what they're doing, and they know the company is not cheating them of their rights. That's the most important thing. They will also know if the company is selling snake oil. So never ever cheat your employee. Never, never,
Right.
never. They tell you these people. So please know that our laws in Malaysia,
Right.
those governing unfair dismissal, constructive dismissal, whether
Right.
there's a pandemic or no, the law still stays as it is.
All right. Could you just share a little bit about the law? What is the law regarding this?
Retrenchment or pay cut?
Okay, let's say both lah. Let's start with retrenchment first.
Both lah. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. The law regarding this pay cut, this salary reduction. Okay, it's like this. Um, Generally, salary reduction is not allowed.
Okay.
Generally lah.
Right.
See, whether you see okay, biasa, there are two kinds of employees.
Yes.
We have employees who are under the act,
Right.
okay, and these are employees which are number one, salaries are 2,000 and below, or they fall into the first schedule.
Right.
First schedule meaning they are manual labor and all that lah. So these people, you have to strictly follow the act.
Right.
Yeah. Then secondly, you have people who are non-EA employees like you and I.
Right.
But these non-EA employees also, okay, there is no way you can embed into their contract of employment that salary reduction can be done unilaterally by the management. No, you cannot
Okay.
contract out the law in that manner.
Right.
So, for both categories of employees, consent must be obtained,
Right.
and
Okay.
such consent must be obtained uh, in the consent must be willful lah. The consent must be voluntary, dengan rela hati. It
Right.
cannot be forced. It cannot be coerced, and you cannot cheat the person and lie and misrepresent to the person for
Right.
him or her to give consent.
Right.
You cannot, for example, write a letter to the person and say, "Dear Mr. So and so, your salary will be reduced by 20% for the month of March until the economy recovers.
Right.
Please sign below to indicate your consent." Apa dah? Please sign below is already forcing the person, isn't it?
Mm. So the right way
You
should
you
be
the
sorry.
right way you should communicate to the person, and you should give a chance for the person to ask questions. Even if they object, you cannot continue with the salary deduction.
Right.
But I am very sure if you explain to them nicely, or if you tell them, look, okay, your salary is going to be reduced by 20% from March until June. Right? In July, when you come back to work, you're going to get your full salary. Company will pay back the arrears. So there'll be arrears, isn't it? 20% per month. Company will endeavor to pay back the arrears until by the end of the year, something like this.
right,
I am very sure if that is explained to the person, laid out nicely in the letter, the person will
right,
sign it.
right,
The employee will give his consent.
right.
And then if you reduce the salary by 20%, what are you going to put in place of it? You must put in place something else. The person is already suffering,
Yeah,
having to work at home, and then the children somehow, not being, uh, they're not able to go to school, distracting, all these things, buat orang sakit kepala. So what can the employer do? So the
right.
employer jangan tambah minyak ke api, sudah orang tension kasih tambah tension kan. So
Mm,
what can the employer do for employees who have to work at home? Check into with them, see whether they're okay or not. Do something for them.
right,
Support them morally, support them in whatever way while they are doing work for you at home. Okay,
right,
itu for salary reduction.
right.
Now for terminations and retrenchment, let me tell you, actually, for me lah, I know a lot of people are going to throw eggs at me for this, but I tell you, retrenchment in companies, it is not necessary. You can
Mm,
actually lay off for a little while, but you do not need to retrench. But if you have to, and that's up to you lah. If you think you really have to retrench, now retrenchment, yeah, for employees who are under the Employment Act, you must strictly follow the termination um, benefits, the compensation, which is laid out in the what we call employment termination and layoff benefits regulations. I think 1980 for that silap.
right.
Now in there, it's already stipulated the compensation amount. If you want to pay more, you can pay more, but you should never pay less.
Okay.
Now, however, in terms of non EA employees, this one is different.
Mm,
For non EA employees, if you do not have the compensation as part of terms and conditions of employment, whether in the handbook or in the offer letter, then that person is not entitled for any compensation for retrenchment.
right.
However, the management can always work out an MSS package or a VSS package, subject to mutual agreement between the two, lah, the employee and the employer. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is why I say everything boils down to communication. Everything boils down to how the employers look at the employees.
Right.
That's why you see when you talk about human resources, it's actually a anomaly. Like you can't call it human resources. You should call it people power.
Okay.
Your people, because they are the ones who power up your business. If you think of them as resources, you treat them like machinery lah. Tak mau pakai
Mm,
pergi simpan, tak mau pakai buang.
right,
Correct or not?
right, right, right.
Ah.
Okay. Got it. So we have a
So
few
are
more
we gonna?
questions. Yeah. Do you have more to say on this, Tahira?
Yeah, I think we can. No, I'm seeing the screen. There's so many questions
Yes, yes, yes.
on the
Yes.
topic.
There are a lot
Yeah,
of
we can
questions
take some of
already.
the questions. Mm.
Okay, great. Uh, all right. So what are the guidelines for paying compensation?
The guidelines for paying compensation, like I mentioned, for those who are under the Employment Act, you have to
Right.
follow the employment termination and layoff benefits regulations.
Okay. Okay.
Um, if it's 2 years, less 2 years, less than 2 years, it's 10 days for every year of service. 2 to 5 years, 15 days, and I
Okay.
think more than 5 years is 50 days. Yeah.
Got it.
But you can pay
Okay.
more. I would encourage them to pay more.
Okay.
So for those non-EA employees, the compensation will be
And
subject to contract.
another question on YouTube. Some questions again. Okay,
Sure.
from Punita Nugnaidu. Another employment problem is some employers think work from home during MCO means the employer owns 24/7 of the employee's time. Okay, so that I've been hearing a little bit of that. And then Roslan Yaakob says communication is the key at this point. I advise similarly for companies to think far ahead. Some companies pay increment and bonus now, but next 3 months will request for pay cut. If needed, no such payment to be made and saved for more desperate time in the nearest future. And then Vicky Krishna said, I'm blessed to have owners. Just hold on a second.
For me
Yes,
personally, from
okay.
Singapore.
Right. Wait, I lost that. Just give me a minute.
You see, this
Owners
is
are
exactly what I said just now, right? You see, this
right,
lady,
right, right. Vicky
her
Krishna.
business owners, yeah, called her all the way from Singapore to explain about salary reductions, and she agreed for the simple
Right,
reason that they show they cared all the way from Singapore. They can call her and
right.
explain everything. You see, this
Yeah.
is
So yeah, Vicky has always said that his employees are always, really, really like they take care his employees at heart lah. Their organization. He's always said that. And then Siti Naila said that leadership skill we need to inspire. All right. Okay. And then Roslan says use talking when talking, use numbers and share with them transparently. All right. And
yes,
then
correct.
okay, Yogeshwaran Gopalakrishnan says, what if the consent is not unanimous among all employees?
Okay, this is a very good point. Can I take this up, Mr. Yogis
Sure.
Warren? Thank you very much for this
Yeah.
question. Now, I'm presuming he's talking about non-EA employees because kalau EA this issue won't arise. Kalau
Right.
non-EA employees and you do not have a unanimous agreement. Okay, first things first lah. There's no such thing as a unanimous consent because your contract of employment is unique to you. It's
Right.
individual between you and your paymaster and your employer.
Right.
So you have the right to say no if you feel that the pay cut is unfair to you, if you feel that you do not agree to this pay cut, you can say no. And if you
Right.
say no and the management still insists on deducting your pay without your consent, and then thereafter they make an excuse saying, oh, last time you don't want your pay to be reduced, now we have to resort to retrenchment, you're the first one to go.
Mm.
Okay. So for people like this, please, I would suggest that you call the IR department hotline, right? And you tell the IR department this has been happening, make a report to them, ask them for advice what you should do. Because for me, I think that's a clear cut case of constructive dismissal. It is
Right.
not that we do not support the employer in these times.
Right.
Okay, it is not okay. I have a real life case here
Mm.
of someone who is working in a financial capacity. This person is a chartered accountant, and for him, when he's done all his accounting magic work lah, which I don't quite understand. But what he said was when he did some forecasting work, he said that the company still can actually retain their manpower for the next 6 months. There is no
Right.
need for salary deduction. There is no need to lay off anybody. So he said that the company still can sustain. But somehow the management disagreed with him. And the management had
Mm.
unilaterally decided to implement a pay cut. And then, like I mentioned, they somehow coerced the employees to agree. Now,
Right.
I told this person, you have a right to actually file a complaint to the IR department because number one, you have already given your data, your quantitative data to the management for them to consider. And you being a chartered accountant is a qualified person to actually, work on those figures and say, look, the company still can sustain its manpower at least until the end of the year. But since the management will listen for God knows what reason, and then start to unilaterally reduce salaries of everybody, and funny lah, they reduce the salary, but somehow they didn't touch those employees under the act. Oh, 2,000 salary and below, tak ada pay cut. I said, you see, snake oil. All these things menipu one I tell you. You see, they know if they traverse into the area of the the Employment Act employees, they will get into major trouble. So
Right.
only those who are non-EAs, only they deployed this salary reduction.
Right.
So you see, I would suggest you keep the number of your lawyer, not your company's lawyer, your lawyer or the IR department handy. Okay, please call them. I believe the IR department still works. Their hotline still works, even though the counter tutup, but the hotline still works. So please let them know. Please file a complaint. You can actually file your complaint now by email to the IR department. If you feel that you've been unfairly treated or constructively dismissed, please don't wait. Now, this is something I need to point out. I think I need to share this with a lot of employees. If you don't already know, I think the lawyers would know, but I'm doing the lawyers a favor here to explain on the 60-day limitation to file a complaint to the IR department. Now, I know there have been some information going around to say that the MCO will actually form a sort of moratorium period between your case and the date that you file a complaint to the IR department. Okay, so let's say you want to file a complaint on the 1st of April, but the MCO is extended to 28th of April. So
Right.
you have like 28 days moratorium kononnya lah before your 60 days start running. Now I'm telling you, that is not true. You can check with your lawyers, you can check with any online lawyers you find on LinkedIn. That is not true. Because the 60 days uh, from the date, okay, let's say you've been constructively dismissed or unfairly dismissed, the 60 days will start running from the day you leave your employment. Whether
Okay.
there is a MCO, whether there's anything, it is not a supervening event to stretch that period of 60 days. That 60 days is strictly 60 days. So let's say you have a grievance that you want to file, a complaint you want to file to the IR department, file it now by email. You can check their website. There's a hotline number. There's several hotline numbers. There's an email there. File it now. Yeah.
Got it.
Don't wait. Kalau you tunggu-tunggu, nanti 1 month later, the government says, oh, PKP extended lagi sampai habis raya, then you'll be like, hey, sudah 60 days, how, don't wait, please. At least when finally the office opens, you'll have a proof that you've already submitted your complaint to the R department by email on whatever date. Yeah, please keep a copy of that. Please remember, not everything you read on online is correct. That 60 days by statute, it is a statutory provision. The MCO, whatever virus doesn't make any changes to it, it is still 60 days.
Okay. So the thing is, you need
So to
to.
answer, to recap Mr. Yogeswaran's question, if there is someone who is not giving his consent, then the management cannot impose a salary cut on this person. And if they impose, they proceed to doing it, this person can lodge a complaint of constructive dismissal to IR department.
Okay, got it. So, and then Punita Nook Naidu has said, Tahira, my experience with two significant companies I'd worked with for a long time before. One thing I learned is not to trust or rely on HR. Okay, so it's really refreshing to hear your thought. Even the first part of the interview is not over. Vyasa, please do the second part. Okay, to help seriously deluded HR people out there. All right. Okay, so I think
Why? I'm curious now. Why, Nita? Why is it that you don't trust HR people? It's still snake oil to you, is it?
okay, we got to hear
Ay,
her
kesian,
experience
kesian
later.
orang HR.
And then from YouTube, Sharipul Ramli has said principal governing retrenchment by LIFO rule. What last in, first out, right? What are the sound reasons that IR court may allow retrenchment without the LIFO or last in, first out principle? Any IR court award retrenchment without the LIFO principle?
There's a lot. There's a lot. If you want the cases, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I have a few cases. Yes, you can depart from the LIFO principle. It is not commonly done and cannot be arbitrarily and capriciously done, but it has been done and the courts have agreed to it. The most important reason, the most important point here is that there must be a genuine reason why the LIFO principle is being departed from. Okay, if there's a genuine reason why the LIFO principle is being departed from, then the courts will not interfere because it is a prerogative of the management to rearrange the business in whatever manner they want. Yeah, dia punya the element here is the bona fide element. Okay, that is the first thing the court will look at. If you want the awards, the cases, there are a few landmark cases. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. I think you can find me quite easily. I look the same in the photo, nama pun sama. Please connect with me. I will be very happy to share with you some of the court awards.
Okay, so you can look for her in LinkedIn under Tahirah Manesah. All right. She's very active. She puts up a lot of case studies and research there. All right. So let me just go on to some other questions that we have. Okay, in navigating the risk of COVID-19 at the workplace, what is more important for employers? To follow industrial law or to adapt a more compassionate approach? Over to you, Tahira.
Sorry, what was the question again?
Okay, again, let
What
me
was the
just read
question?
it out. Okay. In navigating the risk of COVID-19 at the workplace, okay, what is more important for employers? To follow industrial law or to adopt a more compassionate approach?
Okay, so it's asking whether to follow the law or to provide the more compassionate approach.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Believe me when I say, if you follow the law, that is the compassionate approach. You know why?
Mm.
If you look at the law carefully, okay, there are a few things here that you need to look at. One of the things is the code of conduct for industrial harmony. Yeah.
Right.
Even though it is just a code of conduct, but it is a guideline used by the courts, a guideline used by the lawyers, guidelines used by the judges. Basically, the code of conduct is giving what we call a compassionate or empathetic way of dealing with issues like this, looking into the abilities of the person, the age of the person, whether the person has got family members who are dependent on them, things like this. And then if you look at common law also, okay, now the underlying concept of every contract of employment is the implied term of mutual trust and confidence.
Okay.
Now, what is this mutual trust and confidence? So, mutual trust and confidence is something which is expected of both the employer and the employee. Yeah. So, when you join a company, when you sign on a new job, you're actually signing on two employment contracts. Do you
Right.
realize that? Many people don't realize. Many people think that just because they sign on the piece of paper saying offer letter, so that's it lah. Actually, there's another one. There's a contract you enter into that you cannot see. It's called a psychological contract. Now, this
Mm-hmm.
is a concept which is actually recognized by the law. Okay, and this is a concept where the tenet of mutual trust and confidence is embedded. Now, what is mutual trust and confidence? For example, okay, as employees, we trust our employers to give us a safe place to work. We trust our employers to take care of our welfare while we are servicing the company. We trust our employers to protect us, yeah, and to pay us on time, to safeguard our good name, our family. At the same time, the employer also expects the employees to work diligently, work hard. All these things are not in your employment contract, obviously. Work honestly and all these things. But these are the expectations of both parties when they enter into employment contract. Now, what happens during this pandemic, during this MCO season, when half the workforce is working at home, half of the workforce are being nervous every morning, going out of their house, tengok kiri, tengok kanan, see whether they will be apprehended by the roadblocks and all that. And the people are suffering because shops are closed, especially people with families. It is not easy to be cooped up at home. We understand this.
Yeah.
So when there is no trust by the management, okay, what I mean by no trust is, for example, when they want to implement a certain thing, they want to take away certain benefits, they want to take away certain even basic rights of the employees with no discussion. They never ask for feedback. So how do employees feel? Employees feel that the employers have breached their contract, have breached that obligation of mutual trust. But if employers were to provide, proper safeguards, proper SOPs, we have an SOP in place for example, crisis communication. Like for example, if you're working from home and then something happens to you, you feel sick. Now, how can you get yourself tested? Let's say your wife doesn't drive, or you're a single mother, single father, for example. Maybe your child is sick, showing certain worrying symptoms. So what happens? You're panicking right now because you can't go out the house just like that. So who will you reach out to? You should reach out to your HR. You should reach out to your employer. Your employer should have in place the resources to help you. They should have the numbers of hospitals, for example, or private labs who can do testing. We did this once with one of our employees. She was tested negative, thank God,
Right.
but because there were symptoms. So what we did was we call in one of the labs to go to her house, do the swab testing, quarantine her in the house. They go back, they tested her. So while we quarantined her, her gaji jalan. We paid her full. No, everything. We paid her full. So when the test came out, the test results came out was negative, so we allowed her to come back to work. So the important thing is the employee must know where to go during these dark days, and these are dark days for everyone.
Right.
When you have a sick child or you yourself are feeling ill, you will have no time to actually Google what your senses all will be already everywhere. You
Right.
only think about, okay, who do I go to? Who do I trust to help me? So the employer must be the place of trust. The employer must be the resource provider. The HR must be the perantara, the instrument of these resources. So the HR must also be vigilant lah. They must also inform the management. Okay, these are the resources MOH has come up with them. Ministry of Health, they have come up with a few hotlines. For example, if you're feeling anxious, some people, being cooped out in the house makes them very depressed.
Yeah.
They get
True.
anxiety attacks.
True.
Yeah? They can't go out. And then if they talk to their friends might also tambah-tambah lagi dia punya, anxiety by saying, yeah, my neighbor recently died of COVID. So the fellow, you should, the HR should be the level-headed person, the go-to person whereby everybody goes to and say, hey, I'm feeling uneasy, I'm breaking out in cold sweat, I'm feeling very anxious. What can I do? Okay, there are a few online resources. There's hotline, by the ministry. The HR should be able to give these to the employees. So this is
Right.
the way we protect people. This is this is actually in compliance with the law also, because if you look at the framework of the law to provide employees a safe place to work is also a OSHA requirement, and it's also a requirement of the Employment Act. See, so being safe, it doesn't mean that only when they're in the factory or in the office you keep them safe. They're doing your work for you from the house. It's your obligation to keep them safe there. Yeah.
Right.
So again, empathy lah. There was one talk that I actually looked at. It was on YouTube. I put it in my article. Those who are interested to have a look can view my latest article on LinkedIn. It is by the president of a women's right organization, where she advocates for everyone to look at things from a mother's eyes, a mother's point of view. And I think this is relevant also for employers. They should look at their people just like they look at their own children. They should look at their business just like they look at their own home. Because these are the people with them who built the company to where it is today. So, the fact that now a crisis has hit, why is it your people or your family, your extended family, the first to go? We understand the economics of it, we understand money matters, but at the same time, whatever it is that you decide to do, there must be an element of humanity in what you decide to do. And in complying with the law, actually, there's no dichotomy between the law and ethics. and empathy. Okay, the law in itself contains all that. Although our law in Malaysia is a bit slow, we're still doing the 1967 IRA and the 1955 EA. But still, if you look at it very, very carefully, read between the lines, also study the common law, okay, there is a lot of elements of compliance. The courts have, the court, the industrial court is a court of equity and good conscience. It is not actually a court of law. It is a creature of equity and good conscience. So equity and good conscience itself will tell you the court is more leaning towards compassion and humanity rather than technical stringency of the law.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what about SMEs, startups, or smaller companies which have no choice but to reduce surplus manpower or deploy measures like salary reduction or unpaid leave? Another question.
Okay, if there is no choice, I'm very sure startups will be one of the worst impacted by the pandemic. If you really have no choice, like what I said, if you want to terminate, you terminate in a humane way lah. You make sure that even after you let them go, if you absolutely have to let them go, then let them go with compassion, and after that do something that shows you as an owner still cares about your people. Keep in touch with them, share information with them, share resources with them, keep on doing it as if they are still your people, as if they're still your team. They will understand if you communicate with them and say, look, I have no more money to pay your salary, I have to let you go, but I will still keep in touch with you. If there is any other opportunity for you to gain employment after this, find them alternative employment. Find them some new jobs that they can take up, even part-time jobs, even freelance jobs that they can do to sustain themselves during this period. The important thing is be a responsible employer. Money is not everything. And money, yeah, it's everything, during the good times, yeah. You want to expand your business, you need money. You want to recruit, you need money. But during this time, what is more important? More important is that everybody bonds together. Everybody helps each other. That is the more important thing.
Right. Got it. Okay. Another one. Um, what is the HR's role in all of this?
I think I've been talking about the HR's role for the past 1 hour. HR's
Okay.
role basically to be the intermediary between the management and the staff. The
Right.
HR also must understand you are also staff.
Right.
You are also an employee. It's just that you
Yes.
have the privilege of holding the HR title. You are also an employee. And the reason why maybe lah you're the last one to be sacked, or you're the last one to have your salary reduced is because of your role in the company. Now, you must remember, once this pandemic is over, one of the inevitable evolution of work is going to be AI. Now, this AI may come next year, may come another 10 years, not 10 years, maybe another 2 years. See, once this AI comes into place, we may not even need human HR people. So now, whoever is holding the title of HR, I'm talking, even reminding myself lah,
Right.
don't be too cocky about it. Don't please climb down from the high horse. Now your duty basically as a HR is actually to be the instrument of what we call this. If let's say your employer has to communicate certain things, be that instrument of compassionate communication to the people. Try and understand, try and communicate in the language that people understand. Try and understand, be like one of them. If you have to communicate to, let's say, a group of blue collar workers, try and speak in their language. I mean, their way of thinking. Draw
Right.
analogies from things that they're familiar with. If
Right.
you talk like you come from the sky, I don't know what to say lah. This is really really not the time. So HR has to play the role of, I would say, the caregiver also, the person that conveys the right message of the management to the staff. and HR also uh, have to be very apa orang kata up to date lah.
Right.
Because at the same time, you also have to advise the management because the laws changes every day. New policies will come out every day. New and updated government schemes and all will come out every day. So you have to be, you have to have things on the tips of your fingers and have to be ready to advise the management as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So one more question, but this is from an SME owner. He says that he's a small he has a small company, 25 people, and he has no choice at all. He has checked all the available methods because he said he loves his people, but he has to lay off some people. So what is the right way to do it?
He's talking about laying off or retrenching, two different things. If he's talking about
Uh,
laying off, it could be temporary.
okay.
Is it temporary or is it permanent?
I think he meant retrenchment.
Retrenchment, like I mentioned, lah, he has to follow the policies. Sorry, he has to follow the law.
Okay.
He has to file the PK form. You see, retrenchment is a matter of statute.
Yes.
You cannot arbitrarily and say, I hereby retrench you. I
Mm-hmm.
hereby terminate your services. That is termination simpliciter. In Singapore, it works. In Malaysia, it doesn't.
Right.
So we are talking about retrenchment. Otherwise, you see that retrenchment will be seen as an unfair dismissal or a termination simpliciter in the guise of retrenchment. So please follow the law, fill up the PK form, and in the PK form by email to the Labour Office. Check with the Labour Office whether they can receive the hard copy by courier or whatever it is lah. And then do the calculations for the retrenchment for those non-EA employees, if you have employees who's not covered by the EA, try your very best to pay them something, pay them some kind of compensation. And then it is also a matter of your obligation under the retrenchment process for you to help the employees look for alternative employment, at least put up, like a status on your LinkedIn or your Facebook and say, I'm letting go of my team. Anyone who needs part-timers, freelancers, please, let me know. I can ask them to send their resumes to you. So many ways you can help. The
Right.
SME owner can also approach headhunters because there are people who are recruiting at the moment, and one of them is my employer. We are
Right.
recruiting at the moment. I mean, we recruit hell or high water, rain, shine, or whatever it is, we still recruit. We are this type of employers. So there are people. I know Malayan Plum is also recruiting. I know they are our rivals, but okay lah. I just help them to promote a little bit. They are recruiting. There are manufacturers who are recruiting, and I believe there are also some other businesses that are recruiting. So please approach them. Try and get your people some alternative employment. And I think that's the best you can do. Pay the compensation, equal the law. That's it.
All right. Okay. Another question is, uh, would you advise employees to lodge a complaint about unfair or constructive dismissal against the employers after the MCO for the employer's failure to comply with prevailing labor and industrial law during this period?
Yeah, this question, yeah, I mean, okay lah. For me, I would advise the employees to uh, tengok their situation. You look at the circumstances you're in. You weigh in a few factors. Number one, are you a long service employee? Number two, if you do make a report to IR, what is it that you want to gain? You want to gain reinstatement. If let's say it's unpaid salaries or whatever, you can make a report to JTK. That's fine. But I also have had a few people who have just started working like a week before they were terminated, and they say, "Can we make a complaint?" I said, "Of course you can make a complaint. Anybody can make a complaint, right? It is within your human rights to make a complaint. But is it worth it or not in the long term for you to make a complaint? Because let's say if you make a complaint of constructive or unfair dismissal, if you're looking for reinstatement, right? Let's say you are reinstated. Do you really want to work with a company like that? Or do you want to go through months and months of going up and down the IR office? You know, going to the industrial court is not like, hello, Mr. Judge, I want to file complaint. I want to you to go and summon my employer. It's not like that. You pergi IR department first, and then you will have to go through a series of mediations and case management, a few rounds lah, and then the case will go to the minister, because now, even though there's amendments to the Industrial Relations Act, hasn't been gazetted. So probably the whole scheme will just follow. Go to the Mantri, the Mantri will look at it. Mantri has a whole stack of things to look at. And by the time the Mantri look at it, the Mantri says, okay lah, this one no merit. If there's no merit, the case won't go to the court. If there is merit, then the case will go to the court. So by the time the case goes to the court, a simple case like yours, nitty gritty also will take a year. And then you naik turun mahkamah also, well, of course, there's no lawyer cost and all that. You can represent yourself. You see, but the energy and the time spent, is it wise?
Yeah,
If you think it's wise, go ahead.
right.
Another thing, of course, you'll be burning your bridges lah. If you think it is wise, go ahead. If you're a long-serving employer, let's say you've served the employer for 5 years, and the employer treats you like that, letting you go without adequate compensation or not following the law, it's worth it. Go ahead and sue them upside down. Yeah,
Mm,
but of course, make sure that you can either get a good lawyer, or you need to know how to defend yourself lah. But if you've only worked for 2 days or 2 weeks, ayo, cut your losses and just walk away, man.
yeah,
Just go get yourself another job lah.
look for a better
Seriously, look
employer. Yeah,
for better employment. Use your energy and your network on LinkedIn to go and get yourself a new job, please. Walk away and forget about this kind of employees. My advice.
yes. Okay. So, all right. So, very good sharing, Tahira. Thank you so much for all this
Yeah.
info. Do you have anything? We are already coming up to the end of the show. If
Okay.
anyone wants to ask anything, you can drop in your last questions. Let me just check again. Any other last questions? And Tahira, if you want to, share something before we leave the show, feel free to leave. If you have any good advice or anything like that before we finish the show, you can actually, share it now.
Okay, basically, I I would advise both employer and employee to think very, very wisely before you initiate any legal actions or anything. I mean, we don't even have to come to that point during this pandemic. I think during this MCO, during this time that we have in our hands, we should all, whether we are employers or employees, take a step back, reassess ourselves, take stock of what we've done, plan what we're going to do ahead, um, and think about how you know think about long-term plans. I mentioned earlier, when the economy recovers, we do not know whether the economy is going to recover in a V shape or a U shape or an L shape. The economy will recover. How it will recover, we do not know. So I think it is wise for everyone to use this time to, for employers, you can think about protecting your employees, maybe letting them have access to free courses, online, letting them, subsidizing the internet so that they can learn something to upskill themselves. For employees, if you have the advantage, you have the time, do that as well. Because after the pandemic is over, after the MCO is lifted, I can tell you the world is not going to be the same.
Mhm.
All of us have to be prepared for something that we have never expected, and we can never even foresee. We don't know what's going to happen. So, to make sure that we are all in it, we are prepared for this. As the old saying says, the safety in numbers, make sure we're all in it together. There's no sense in animosity between employer and employee. Basically, let's all work together and let's overcome this all together.
Yeah,
That's it,
wisely
guys.
said there. Wisely said there. I think both employees have to also look out for the employers, and employers have to look out for the employees like this during this time, right? This tough time. And then I think, as a summary of what you said, communication is very going to be super important. If it's bad news or good news or difficult news, I think it has to be communicated in a compassionate way, right? That's what I get from this whole conversation. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so employers have to take time to say it in a nice way, even though it's very difficult. They have to say it out and get the consent by the employee,
Betul.
and the employee also has to try to understand what the employee is facing lah, in the best way. Both have to do it in good. They have to just look out for each other lah, in a way, right?
Definitely.
Okay, so Tahira, thank you so much. We have coming to the end right now. Thank you for your sharing. I think there are a lot of technical aspects you have shared here, and
Thank you, yes.
for those who want to reach out to Tahira, okay, just a few other those who have said here, Ellen, Sharipol, Bella. Bella has said admire you. Okay, Shin Nate. All right, and then let me just see who else is here. Tarani
Hey,
has said,
hi. Said Nasir is here. Tarani is my staff. She's my
yeah, she said,
mentee. Said Nasir is also my. Hello.
okay. So if you want to say any, to your highs or anybody, let me just say, Alan Jacob. Okay, these are some of them who have just dropped in to say hi from YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. Okay, so it's a good show. You've been very popular, and I think a lot of people have been sharing this, this, the links out because they want to really know about this. Both employees and employers have been tuned in for this show. Thank you very much, Tahira. And for those who want
Thank
to
you. Yes.
link up to Tahira, please, you can find her on LinkedIn, Facebook. She's on. You can also
Facebook is
look.
very private, only for my high school
Okay.
friends. But you
And you
can
can,
look me up on Instagram. My username is Akusifu.
Aku Sifu. All right, in Instagram, huh? All right.
Akusifu.
And then, of course, in
Yes.
LinkedIn, you can always look for her. She's always there. All right. So thank you,
Yes. And
Tahira.
I have a blog as well. And
Yes,
yes, can I just tell them? I have a blog as
sure.
well for those HR practitioners. If you want to get some technical information, my blog is nosnakeoil.org.
Nosnakeoil.org. Okay, let me just
That's right.
write this down. .org. Okay. No snake oil.
There we
Did
are.
I? Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay. So thanks, Tahira. We will say bye bye for now. Thank you
Okay.
also
Bye,
for
everyone.
the audience. We will see you again, and maybe we might have her again another time. All right, for another round,
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vyasa.
another
Thank you,
round of
everyone.
no
Goodbye.
snake oil. Bye bye.